The bus hummed softly along the winding road, its headlights cutting through the pale fog that blanketed the countryside. Outside, the world was quiet. Fields stretched endlessly, broken only by the silhouettes of forgotten barns and thin, leafless trees swaying in the November wind. Mara pressed her forehead against the window, watching the condensation gather and slide down in crooked trails. She hadn't been back to Honeysuckle Grove in 12 years, and she never thought she'd come back at all. The letter in her bag had changed that. A single page, unsigned but unmistakable. The grove remembers you. Come home before the frost. She'd read it 100 times. Every curve of the handwriting was familiar, elegant, slanted slightly to the right, the same as her mother's. But that couldn't be possible. Her mother had died the summer Mara turned 15. The bus slowed as it passed the faded sign, "Welcome to Honeysuckle Grove," established 1892. Someone had scratched out the word "welcome." Mara's heart thudded gently, not from fear, but something quieter, the feeling of stepping into an old photograph, the kind where colors have faded and silence lingers even in memory. When she stepped off the bus, the cold air bit softly at her cheeks. The town looked smaller than she remembered. Dim street lights, shuttered shops, and a lone cat crossing the road, its shadow stretching thin under the light. Her old house stood at the edge of the grove, just beyond the crooked wooden fence. The air there always smelled of burnt flowers, honeysuckle, and smoke. As she walked toward it, the wind carried faint whispers through the trees, almost like her name. Mara. She froze for a moment, her breath visible in the air. The sound faded. Maybe the wind, maybe not. She took a deep breath and kept walking. At the door, she paused. The paint had peeled away, revealing the raw wood beneath. The old brass key, still under the flower pot, slid into the lock as if it had been waiting. The hinges creaked softly. And just like that, she was home again. Inside, the air was thick with dust and memory. Her mother's old record player sat by the window, untouched. A single chair faced the fireplace, where ashes still rested in the grate as if the fire had gone out just yesterday. She brushed her fingers over the mantel and found something faintly carved into the wood. We never truly leave what remembers us. She didn't remember writing that, but she remembered the voice that used to say it. From outside, a faint flicker of light glowed through the trees. It was soft, golden, like candlelight moving slowly between the trunks. Mara turned toward the window, heart caught between curiosity and nostalgia. The grove was waiting. The night in Honeysuckle Grove had a peculiar stillness, not silence, but the kind of quiet that hums beneath the surface, like an old song only the wind remembers. Mara stood on the porch, her eyes fixed on the faint golden light flickering through the trees. It moved slowly, like a lantern being carried by an invisible hand. The sound of leaves brushing together came in soft waves. She hesitated, then wrapped her coat tighter and stepped off the porch. Her boots crunched over the frost-bitten grass as she made her way toward the grove. The scent of honeysuckle was faint, but distinct. Impossible this late in the year. As she walked, memories began to surface, fragments of laughter and summer air. Her mother's voice calling her name, the warmth of a hand guiding her through the tall flowers, the hum of bees and the whisper of secrets shared under the oak tree. But beneath those memories, something else lingered. The night the grove burned. She had been 15, standing by that same oak tree when the first spark caught. No one ever discovered how it started. By dawn, half the grove had turned to ash, and her mother was gone. Now, in the moonlight, Mara could still see the dark outline of that oak, standing like a monument to something unfinished. The golden light moved closer. It was coming from just beyond the tree line. She stopped. "Hello?" Her voice sounded small, fragile. No answer, only the rustle of branches. She took another step, then another, and suddenly the forest opened into a small clearing, the same one where her mother used to read to her from a little blue book with a cracked spine. The light hovered there, shimmering faintly before fading into the air. In its place, she saw something on the ground, a single page browned by age, resting atop the fallen leaves. She bent down and picked it up. It was from her mother's book, the one she thought had burned. The page read, "Wherever the grove remembers, so does she." Her heart tightened. The handwriting was the same as on the letter. A cold wind swept through the clearing, carrying the scent of smoke and flowers again. She turned sharply, expecting to see someone behind her. For a fleeting second, she did. A figure stood among the trees, faint, like a reflection caught in glass. A woman in a pale dress, hair moving softly as if underwater. Mara blinked, and the figure was gone. The grove fell silent again. She whispered, "Mom?" Only the wind replied. Mara folded the page carefully and slipped it into her pocket. Then she looked up at the stars through the branches, the same stars her mother used to say were the eyes of the grove. For the first time in years, she whispered back to them, "I'm here." The forest seemed to exhale. A soft warmth brushed past her cheek, almost like a touch. And deep within the shadows, the faintest glow returned, this time leading deeper into the grove. She followed.
The deeper Mara went, the denser the forest became. The moonlight barely reached through the tangle of branches above, and the path beneath her feet was hidden under a soft carpet of moss. Yet the glow, that strange golden shimmer, guided her forward. It wasn't steady like a lantern. It pulsed, almost breathing, as if alive. Each step she took seemed to echo with faint whispers. Not voices exactly, but memories. She thought she heard her mother humming, then laughter, faint, like a sound carried from far away. The grove was remembering her.
Mara paused beside an old fallen log, her breath visible in the cold night air. The forest smelled of earth and ash, sweetened by the lingering hint of honeysuckle. Something flickered at the edge of her vision. She turned and saw another light, this one softer, bluish, swaying behind the trees. Two lights now. She hesitated. Who's there? No answer, only a faint creaking sound, like the bending of wood. The golden light drifted ahead again, urging her to move. She followed, stepping carefully over twisted roots and stones slick with frost. Then she saw it, the old stone well.
Half buried under vines, it looked untouched since the fire years ago. Its stones were cracked, blackened by soot. Her pulse quickened. This was where she last saw her mother. That night, her mother had been kneeling beside the well, holding that same blue book. The firelight had danced across her face as she whispered something Mara couldn't hear through the roar of flames. Then the smoke took her. Mara approached the well slowly. The golden light hovered right above it, flickering faintly.
She leaned over the edge. Darkness, deep, endless, and quiet. Then a reflection. Her own face dimly visible in the black water below. But something was wrong. The smile smiled. She staggered back, her heart hammering. No! The smile faded, replaced by another image. A woman's face, soft, familiar, watching her from the depths. Mom? The surface rippled. A voice, faint and distorted, rose from the well. You shouldn't have come back, Mara.
Her blood turned cold. The light above the well flared bright, forcing her to shield her eyes. The air around her grew thick, heavy with the scent of burning flowers. Then, just as suddenly, everything went still. The light vanished. The forest fell silent again. Only one thing remained, the faint outline of a trail leading away from the well. Etched into the frost-covered ground were footprints, bare ones, leading deeper into the grove.
She swallowed hard. Her fingers brushed against the folded page in her pocket. Wherever the grove remembers, so does she. The words echoed in her mind. Maybe her mother wasn't gone. Not completely. And maybe the grove, alive with its memories, was trying to show her why. She took a deep breath and followed the footprints. Behind her, the well gave a faint, hollow sound, like laughter sinking into the earth. The trail of footprints wound deeper into the grove, weaving through narrow corridors of trees that seemed to bend toward her as she passed. Their trunks were gnarled, their bark scarred as if once burned. But from within, a faint amber glow pulsed like veins under skin. Mara could hear the forest breathing now. It was slow, steady, almost rhythmic, like a heart buried beneath the soil. The air was cold, yet thick with a perfume of charred wood and sweet flowers. Her boots pressed softly into the frozen ground as she followed the footprints. They were small, human, and recent. Every few steps she heard something behind her, a soft crunch, the echo of her own pace, or something walking in rhythm with her. She turned. Nothing but darkness and the whisper of wind through the trees. Still, she could feel it, the presence, watching, waiting. A few minutes later, the forest opened into a clearing. In the center stood what looked like the ruins of a cottage, half collapsed, swallowed by ivy and shadow. The walls were black with old fire marks. The roof was gone, replaced by a canopy of leaves. And there, on a fallen beam, lay the blue book. Mara's breath caught.
She stepped closer, every muscle in her body tensed. The book was untouched, its cover gleaming faintly under the moonlight, the same pattern of silver vines etched across its spine. She reached out. The moment her fingers brushed the cover, a gust of wind swept through the grove, carrying with it a faint whisper, her mother's voice. "Do you remember the story of the ash tree, Mara?" She froze. The voice was not inside her head. It came from behind her. Slowly, she turned. A figure stood just beyond the trees, barely visible in the mist. A woman in a pale dress, her hair long and dark, her face obscured by shadow. Mara's throat tightened. "Mom?" The figure tilted her head, then slowly stepped forward. With each step, the frost beneath her feet melted, leaving behind a faint shimmer, like ash turning to light. Mara's eyes filled with tears. "You can't be here." The figure smiled faintly. "Neither can you." Her voice, soft, gentle, the same tone Mara remembered from bedtime stories. But there was something else in it now, something distant, hollow, like an echo of what once was. The woman stopped a few feet away. The moonlight finally touched her face. Beautiful, sad, and burned around the edges, as if she were fading from the world. The grove remembers everything, but not every memory wants to be found. Mara clutched the book to her chest. Why did you leave me? What happened that night? The woman's eyes darkened. I didn't leave. I stayed until the grove took me. A shiver ran through Mara. Took you? The woman stepped closer, whispering, "The ashes remember what the fire could not." Before Mara could reply, the figure's form flickered, and then she was gone, scattering into a swirl of glowing embers that drifted upward into the night air. Mara fell to her knees, trembling. The grove was silent again. But the footprints, the bare ones, were back. Only now they circled the cottage and led towards something faintly glowing at the far end of the clearing. A doorway of light. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. She rose, gripping the blue book tightly. Every instinct told her to turn back, to leave the forest, to forget. But she couldn't, not now. Whatever waited beyond that light, it was the truth, and she was ready to face it. The glow shimmered faintly through the mist, painting the frost-covered branches in soft hues of silver and gold. Mara stood frozen, her pulse quickening as the forest around her seemed to fall silent, as if holding its breath. The source of the light was just beyond the tree line, spilling gently over the ground like liquid sunlight. She moved closer, her boots sinking into damp leaves, the faint crunch echoing louder than it should have in the still air. When she reached the clearing, she saw it. A doorway standing alone in the middle of the grove. No walls, no structure, just a door frame made of aged wood, covered in honeysuckle vines that bloomed despite the cold. From its center, the warm light pulsed softly, like a heartbeat.
She hesitated, whispering, "Is this what you wanted me to find, Mom?" The wind carried no answer, only the faint scent of ash and flowers. She reached out, her fingers trembling, and brushed the vines aside. The moment her skin touched the wood, the light flickered, not brighter, but deeper, as though it recognized her. The ground beneath her trembled softly, and for a second she thought she heard a voice whisper her name from the other side. "Mara!" Her throat tightened. It was faint, distorted, but unmistakable. Her mother's voice.
Her mind screamed to turn back, to run, but her heart wouldn't listen. She stepped closer, her reflection rippling faintly across the glowing surface of the doorway. For a moment, she could see the outline of a room, familiar, warm, a house she once called home before the fire took everything. The scent of honeysuckle was stronger now, almost overwhelming. It wasn't just a smell, it was a memory. Laughter, sunlight, a woman humming a tune while planting flowers by the window. Mara's eyes welled up. "If this is a dream," she whispered, "please don't let me wake up."
And then, with a trembling hand, she pushed the door open. A soft gust of warm air brushed her face, carrying with it the faintest sound of a melody. It was the same lullaby her mother used to sing to her before bed. Mara stepped through. The world dissolved into light. At first, there was nothing. Only the feeling of weightlessness, like she was drifting through warm air. The light faded slowly, revealing a hazy room that looked both familiar and wrong at the same time. She stood in what appeared to be her childhood living room. The same lace curtains, the same crooked bookshelf, yet everything shimmered faintly, like it was made of smoke and memory. The smell of honeysuckle was stronger now, almost tangible. She turned in slow disbelief, her breath catching when she saw the photograph on the mantel. Her mother's smiling face captured in the glow of the same sun that had burned their house years ago. "Mom?" she whispered.
A soft hum answered her, distant at first, then closer. The lullaby drifted through the air, sweet and haunting. Mara followed the sound, each step feeling heavier, as though the air itself resisted her movement. Down the narrow hallway, the world seemed to bend. The wallpaper melted into flowing patterns, colors shifting like a dream trying to remember itself. The hum grew clearer. When she reached the bedroom door, she hesitated. A faint light glowed underneath. She pushed the door open. Inside, her mother sat on the edge of the bed, facing the window, her hair glowing faintly in the golden light. She was humming that same lullaby, the one she'd sung every night before the fire. Mara's throat tightened. "Mom!"
The woman turned slowly. Her face was soft, kind, but there was something distant in her eyes, something not quite alive. "Mara," she said, her voice like the echo of wind through leaves. "You came back." Tears welled in Mara's eyes. "I've missed you so much." Her mother smiled faintly. "I never left. You did." The words sent a shiver through her. "What do you mean?" Her mother rose from the bed, her movements slow, graceful. The air around her shimmered like light through water. "You burned with the house that night. You've been wandering ever since." Mara's heart stopped. "No, I got out. I survived. But as she looked down at her hands, she saw the faint glow beneath her skin, like embers under ash. Her reflection in the window flickered, not solid, not whole. Her mother reached out, placing a cool hand on her cheek. "It's all right. You can rest now." The honeysuckle vines outside the window swayed in a wind she couldn't feel. The lullaby began again, soft and soothing.
Mara
felt warmth spreading through her, the edges of her vision dimming. "Is this home?" she whispered. Her mother nodded. It always was. The world shimmered once more, and the grove outside the door began to fade into a gentle glow of morning light.
The warmth of her mother's touch lingered even after the figure faded, leaving Mara alone in the softly glowing room. Outside the window, the grove swayed in rhythm with the lullaby that now seemed to echo from the earth itself, soft, unending, patient. Mara stepped closer to the window. The vines had grown thicker, almost pressing against the glass, their blossoms pulsing with faint light. The scent was dizzying now, sweet and heavy, like memory turned liquid. She reached out a trembling hand to open the window, but it didn't budge. Instead, the glass rippled beneath her fingertips. For a moment, she saw her reflection again, her eyes hollow, her skin faintly translucent, her heartbeat a flicker of ember beneath her chest.
Then the reflection moved without her. The other version of herself smiled faintly, tilting her head, and whispered through the glass, "You're not supposed to wake up yet." Mara stumbled back, gasping. The room dimmed, and the lullaby turned distorted, slowed, reversed, like a record spinning the wrong way. She turned toward the door, but the hallway beyond was gone. Only endless golden mist remained. "Mom?" she called, her voice small. No answer, only the low hum of something breathing in the walls. She took a step forward. The floorboards didn't creak, they sighed, as if exhaling the years she thought she had lived.
In the mist, faint shapes moved, silhouettes of houses, trees, children's laughter, faint as a memory from another lifetime. And then she saw it, the outline of the grove burning silently, no flames, just the color of fire, hanging in the air like smoke frozen in time. She began to run. Her feet didn't touch the ground, yet somehow the world rushed past. The further she went, the clearer the voices became. Her mother's, the neighbors', the sound of water buckets clattering against scorched wood. She stopped at the edge of the field. There, among the cinders, stood a small figure, a little girl, barefoot, staring at the ruins of a house that no longer existed.
Mara's chest tightened. "Who are you?" The child turned. Her face was familiar, too familiar. "I'm you," the girl said simply. "The part that never left the fire." Mara shook her head. "No, But the truth settled like ash in her throat. The night of the fire, the screams, the falling beams, the air so hot it felt like sunlight breaking apart. She hadn't made it out. Her mind had built this place, this grove, this home, as a sanctuary from what she couldn't accept. The child walked closer. her eyes glimmering like distant stars. "It's time to stop wondering." Mara knelt, tears streaking her face. "What happens if I do?" The girl smiled sadly. "Then the morning will come."
She reached out her hand. Mara hesitated, then took it. The grove began to dissolve around them, the mist peeling away like old paint, revealing light, vast, endless light. And for the first time in years, Mara didn't resist. The light wasn't blinding. It was gentle, like dawn filtered through fog. Mara felt the warmth against her skin, soft and weightless, as if the air itself remembered her name. She stood in a vast white expanse, no floor, no ceiling, just a horizon that glowed faintly like morning trying to be born. The little girl, her younger self, still held her hand, but her outline had begun to blur, dissolving into threads of gold. "Where are we?" Mara asked softly. The child tilted her head. "Where you've always been, between the last breath and the first." Mara frowned. "You mean I'm gone?" The child smiled faintly. "No, just not holding on anymore." The air shimmered around them, and faint images began to form, like reflections rippling across a pond. She saw her mother kneeling in a burnt garden, planting new honeysuckle vines. She saw an old man lighting a candle by the river every year on the same date. She saw herself, or what could have been, walking through the town square, laughing, alive. Each image pulsed softly before fading into the white. Mara whispered, "They remembered me." "They always did," said the voice, not the child's this time, but something deeper, older, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. It wasn't frightening. It felt like being known. She asked, "Why show me all this?" The voice seemed to sigh, not in weariness, but in tenderness. "Because you stayed too long in the echo. Honeysuckle Grove wasn't a place, it was a memory you turned into a world." Mara closed her eyes. "I wasn't ready to leave." "And now?" She hesitated, feeling the ache in her chest, not pain, but release. "I think I'm ready to be real again," she whispered. The little girl smiled one last time, stepping back into the light. As she did, the petals from the unseen honeysuckle vines began to drift through the air, glowing, weightless, infinite.
Mara reached out, and one petal landed on her palm. It pulsed once, warm, alive, and then melted into her skin, leaving only a faint trace of gold. Then the light began to fade, but instead of darkness, she saw color, muted greens, dusty sunlight, the smell of grass after rain. The outline of a small town emerged in the distance, not quite the same as she remembered, but alive.
Mara stood at the edge of a hill, watching the rebuilt honeysuckle grove sway gently in the breeze. Children laughed somewhere beyond the trees. Someone was humming her mother's lullaby, carried by the wind.
She smiled, her eyes glistening. You kept it alive. The wind rustled the leaves in answer, and as the scene blurred softly into brightness, Mara whispered one last time, maybe the ashes were never the end. Maybe they were how the roots began again. The sky over Honeysuckle Grove was neither day nor night, a twilight that lingered, unsure which way to turn. Mara stood at the hill's edge, unsure if she was truly there, or if this was yet another memory the light had lent her.
Below her, the grove shimmered with quiet life. New vines crawled up the remnants of old ones, and the faint hum of existence floated through the trees. But something about it felt fragile, like a dream she could wake from too easily. She took a step forward, her bare feet sinking into soft earth. The warmth beneath her skin was real, the faint rustle of leaves real. Yet, somewhere deep inside, she could still feel the echo of the ashes whispering her name. A voice, low, calm, and unmistakably human, drifted from behind her. "You found your way back."
Mara turned. An elderly woman stood there, cloaked in a shawl of pale gray, her eyes gleaming with recognition. Her face was unfamiliar, yet known. Mara frowned. "Do I know you?" The woman smiled. "You did once. You just forgot, like everyone who stays too long between worlds." She walked closer, her footsteps not disturbing the ground. Honeysuckle Grove isn't just a place of memory. It's where people come to remember what they lost. Mara's heart tightened. Then why did I stay? What was I waiting for? The woman's smile faded. "To forgive yourself."
The words struck her harder than she expected. The scenes she had seen, her mother, the candle by the river, the laughter she never lived to hear, all flooded back. She realized then it wasn't the world she'd been haunting, it was herself. "I kept thinking I had unfinished business," Mara whispered. "You did," the woman replied softly. "You forgot that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means letting the roots grow again, even in burnt soil." The ground beneath them trembled gently, not violently, but like the deep sigh of the earth. Light began to weave through the trees again, this time golden, alive. Mara felt warmth rise up through her hands. The gold threads from before, the same that had once connected her to the child, began to form again, spiraling around her wrists.
The woman stepped back into the light. "It's time," she said. "You don't belong in echoes anymore." Mara hesitated. "If I leave, what happens to this place?" The woman smiled, soft, knowing. It will remain for those who need it next. The wind carried the scent of honeysuckle again, gentle and fresh, not ash anymore. Mara looked down at her hands, now glowing faintly. Her heartbeat echoed softly, alive, steady, real. She took a deep breath, then let it begin again.
The world responded, trees swaying, light unfurling, air humming with new life. As her body began to fade into the warmth, Mara heard a faint whisper, the same voice that had guided her before. Every grove has its ashes, but even ashes remember how to bloom. Her last tear fell, glowing briefly before vanishing into the soil, and from that spot a single honeysuckle flower bloomed. And then silence. The hill was empty, but the grove below swayed with life, carrying her memory in every leaf.
The morning after Mara's disappearance, the townsfolk returned to Honeysuckle Grove. For the first time in years, the air was clear, not heavy, not haunted. The fog that had clung to the ground was gone, replaced by sunlight that filtered gently through the trees. They found the old oak standing tall again, the one that had been scorched in the fire decades ago. And at its roots, impossibly, a carpet of honeysuckle blossoms spread, pale gold and white, swaying in the breeze. No one could explain how it grew so fast, or why the ground around it still smelled faintly of smoke and salt.
An elderly gardener knelt down, touched one of the flowers, and whispered, "I thought this place was gone forever." No one replied, but somewhere among the trees, a faint sound, like a sigh, drifted through the leaves. It wasn't eerie, it was peaceful. That night, the caretaker of the grove, a quiet man named Elias, stayed late to lock the gates. As he walked past the oak, he noticed something glimmering at its base. It was an old locket, half buried in the soil. He brushed the dirt away and opened it. Inside, a small photograph, a woman smiling beside a child, both framed by honeysuckle vines. The faces were faded, but their eyes carried a warmth that felt alive. And on the back, scratched faintly by hand, "For when I forget." Elias looked around. The air was still, but not empty. The grove seemed to breathe. He smiled softly and placed the locket back beneath the roots. "Rest easy," he murmured. As he walked away, the wind rose, a gentle rustle that sounded almost like footsteps following behind him, stopping whenever he turned. He chuckled quietly to himself. "Guess you're not done watching over this place, are you?" Inside, a small photograph, a woman smiling beside a child, both framed by honeysuckle vines. The faces were faded, but their eyes carried a warmth that felt alive. And on the back, scratched faintly by hand, "For when I forget." Elias looked around. The air was still, but not empty. The grove seemed to breathe. He smiled softly and placed the locket back beneath the roots. "Rest easy," he murmured. As he walked away, the wind rose, a gentle rustle that sounded almost like footsteps following behind him, stopping whenever he turned. He chuckled quietly to himself. "Guess you're not done watching over this place, are you?" The moon broke through the clouds, bathing the grove in silver. And for just a moment, if anyone had been there to see, they might have noticed a faint golden shimmer weaving between the flowers, a shape forming, familiar and kind, standing at peace before fading again into the mist. No tragedy, no terror, just stillness. As if the earth itself had remembered something beautiful and decided to keep it alive. The ashes of Honeysuckle Grove no longer whispered of loss. They sang softly of renewal. Every petal carried a memory, and every dawn smelled a little like forgiveness. And when the breeze passed through at night, those who listened closely could swear they heard her voice, not sorrowful, not lost, but gently humming a lullaby beneath the stars.